What happened to the perfect person from your high school?
Story 1. He was the youngest son of the richest family in town. His parents wanted him to become a doctor, probably mostly because his older siblings had become a successful lawyer and an equally successful banker. He was a childhood friend of mine all the way through primary school. I think I was tolerated by his parents because our little town had little in the way of a high-class society, and my dad was a respected journalist for a major newspaper as well as a writer for one of the nationally recognized magazines. He loved coming over just to hang out and help do chores. They had a maid who did everything in the house and a gardener who'd take care of their garden. His dad would spend most of his time at work and his mom would spend all of her time on their horses. When he stayed with us, he'd get to experience such wonders as vacuuming the carpets or making dough for bread or maybe even mowing the lawn. When we finished primary school, we went to the same gymnasium. Think high school youths between 16 to 19 years old. Since gymnasium was a bus trip away in the nearest largest city, I guess he kind of felt the leash loosen a little, and he turned into a complete party beast. He had those rich boy looks, money to spend, and a brilliant mind. He knocked the socks off anyone he tried to seduce, which was more or less everything in a skirt. Who was willing to go clubbing with him until the early hours? Through sheer pressure from home, he graduated with brilliant grades and got accepted into medical school. I'd signed up for military service, and we fell out of touch. About 10 years later, I randomly met him in an international airport, and he told me he had graduated medical school and had decided to finally do what he had always wanted. He had more or less called his parents one random day and briefly informed him that he was about to board a plane for Central America, where he would be spending the next few years working as a volunteer doctor. And if they had a problem with that, they could stuff it. Nowadays, he settled down with a lovely girl he met on one of his numerous travels and is working as a medical advisor to some EU organization. His own parents died years ago, and he has little contact with his siblings. My parents tell me that he and his wife stop by when chance brings them near our hometown, and that he's a happy guy that seemingly managed to break free from everyone else's expectations of what he should be and become. You know, you started this story painting this big picture of this person, all these little details. And I was just like, why are you telling me just all this stuff and hyping this guy up so much? But by the end, I was like, yeah, I'm so happy to hear this. I know this person now and I like them and I'm very happy. Well-told little story about a person who took a lot of pressures and money and all that and still just became apparently just an awesome person. That's great. Story 2. The valedictorian of our year level got perfect marks, automatic entry into law or medicine. He chose a culinary course, which didn't even require high school marks because he loves baking and was always great at it. Our teachers tittered over it and kept saying, what a waste, etc. Our science teacher straight up called him an idiot. I don't think his parents were happy either. He now owns multiple bakeries across the country and must be raking in at least $500,000 annually. I will go on to state that even if he only had one little bakery that made him a living and he was happy, he still won and succeeded. You don't need to rake in a ton of money or be super successful. You just have to find something that you enjoy or that you can tolerate and, fund your various hobbies or whatever. This idea that you're wasting potential, screw that. Follow your dream and be happy. You get one life. Live it.
Story 3. I went to a high school of 2,400 plus, so there were quite a few popular folks. I'll tell the one story I remember best, though. I was perusing the paper about 9 years post-graduation and found that a chipper, young, beautiful blonde who had always maintained straight A's and was kind to anyone regardless of age, gender, creed, race, and so forth had gotten married and had done quite well for herself. No surprise there. According to the article, she had a great husband, a couple beautiful kids, a career, and just overall looked like she had a great life. Unfortunately, the article was her obituary. An aggressive form of breast cancer had taken her young at just 27. A number of bullies from my younger years, all still wallowing like cockroaches, living off others and chasing the next high, but the universe took one of the brightest ones. Story 4. It was a guy and a girl, both the prom king and queen. I hated those crowds from high school because the bullying from them was really bad. It was because of a huge gap in lower class and higher class. A year after school, they were getting married, and MTV did a drama miniseries about young adults getting married, in which they were the stars of. My entire town of about 6,000 people watched this show and saw just how big of pieces of crap they were and how spoiled little rich kids they both were. They thought they were going to be stars after being the most popular kids in school, but MTV showed their worst side of them publicly. It was extremely embarrassing for them. They deleted all their social media and basically went into hiding and haven't heard anything from them since. I haven't liked MTV since they stopped playing music videos, but I praised them for showing the true colors of the upper class at my high school. It was true karma getting even.
Yeah, I really can't imagine a scenario where I am featured on a show on post-music video MTV, and it's something I would be proud of. I don't know many MTV shows, admittedly, so maybe there are ones that seem great, but every MTV show that I've ever seen clips of and been shown, my thought is always, ooh, glad I'm not on that.
Story 5. He had a heart attack in his early 20s. He survived, is doing fine now, and ended up being hired by the company that made his pacemaker he got after the heart attack. He didn't mention it in the interview. They only found out after they hired him, so they moved him from accounting to be one of their spokesmen. Story 6. He's now lecturing in theoretical physics. He was always crazy intelligent, so it wasn't a surprise to anyone that he'd get as far as he has. He was crazy good at sports too, captained a couple of the school's teams, and still found time to go on the P at weekends. He's a good guy. Story 7. The perfect boy at my school was this preppy kid named Tom. Tom went with me to Cuernavaca on a language immersion trip in high school, so I got to spend a month with him. He was an entitled, spoiled brat most of the time, and he had no concept of how to be polite to people. Why not even a tenth as rich as his parents? Our host family hated him after they hosted an American barbecue with Mexican sausage and burgers because the host mom put mustard on his hot dog and he was generally a picky eater. You do not be picky when you're in a country where poverty is very real and they are not asking you to eat rotten shark D's or something like that. What happened to him? He went to Stanford University, graduated, and is living in New York City like he's Patrick Bateman or some crap, living the neo-yuppie life as some Wall Street banker hotshot. Story 8. As in pretty smart and nice? That would be a tall blonde in the high achievers class. I really liked her. She was respectful towards everyone and wise beyond her age. Cared about everything and everyone. She became very interested in social issues, mainly the environment, during senior year, attending protests and eventually leading them. I saw her campaigning and working for the council, tried to gain employment in politics, but she also became very disenchanted and cynical from her social media posts. She talked about how hard it was to make people look at the evidence, how nobody who plays fair ever gets ahead, how easy it is to buy into lies, and how the good guys just can't win. She seemed burnt out. 10 years later, she's working in an entry-level position at the taxation office and looks exhausted all the time. I think she wants to be left alone with her cat and a lot of wine.
See, too much pressure. It can just bog a person down, but I will still say, you know what? Maybe she looks exhausted, but maybe she's happy. I hope that she is happy. She doesn't need to have, some job that utilizes all of her great achievements and whatever. If she doesn't like her job, I hope that it supports her in doing something that she loves, because that's fine.
Story 9. Incredibly intelligent young woman destined for medical school and beyond. Straight A's, but suffered physical and emotional abuse from her parents who pressured her into performing at an unsustainable level. She had no choice in where she went to college. Her parents just picked for her. She spent the next 4 years getting bad grades, mingling with abusive boyfriends, ultimately graduating but sinking her chances of med school or anything else. Now she works a job requiring high school education and is in a codependent relationship with a real piece of crap. We were close friends. It was terrible to see them play out. Story 10. She got married to her very handsome husband, had the most adorable child ever, tried having 2 more kids, but kept having miscarriages. They're doing well, though. Bought a house, great job. She finished her degree while being a stay-at-home mom. They go on world travels with their kid once a year. Almost a fairy tale life, and honestly, she deserves it. She was always the sweetest, most kind, and inclusive person I know. Story 11. She wasn't the most popular, but she sure as crap seemed to be the most perfect in every way. Turns out that was a facade, and I ran into her at the crappy rundown, half mental health, half methadone clinic about 5 years after graduation. She had a smile plastered on her face and was as polite as one could be given the circumstances. To this day, I wonder if she was a fellow patient or if she was volunteering her time there, but honestly, neither would surprise me. Being that perfect would most definitely take a toll on your mental health. Story 12. She went to college and then grad school, gained weight, married some guy she met on Reddit, no joke. Then they moved to Europe for several years for his job. They traveled a lot. They recently moved to our hometown, bought a house, and all that. It's a nice house. She works at home or something. She recently told me she was having issues getting pregnant, which made me sad. She was never mean to me in high school or anything. She was always very sweet and genuine, was friends with everyone. I run into her from time to time around town, and I enjoy catching up with her.
Yeah, that was overall fairly nice, you know. You knew this person, and when you saw him again, they went through some struggles, but seemed to be happy, and you're happy for her. The one thing that I'll say, and this is not calling out this commenter, just people in general, so many folks like to bring up that someone gained weight after high school. I got news for you. So many of you are going to gain weight after high school. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's just a weird thing to bring up, after high school, they gained weight. Did you know they also got older? Their hair changed, and also their skin is different, too. Because aging, and I know that it's just odd. I don't know. Don't bring it up. I gained weight after high school, and I look friggin' good.
Story 13. I graduated back in late '84, decent-sized school in Wichita Falls, Texas. I think by far the most popular kid in school was this one girl named Debbie. Pretty hot, smart too, and super outgoing. Her dad had a good job, can't remember exactly what, but she wound up making a ton of connections in the entertainment industry. I'm talking really high up. Think Madonna and U2. She had everything going for her, and when she graduated, I think she had an acting gig lined up for her in Hollywood. Well, for some reason or another, it just never worked out. She wound up marrying a CPA a few years after graduating, and her dreams went out the door when she turned 24. She's only been with one man. I've got no idea what happened to her plans. After all, she was going to be an actress. She was going to be a star. She was going to shake her butt on the hood of Whitesnake's car. Her yellow SUV is now the enemy looks at her average life, and nothing has been all right. Since Bruce Springsteen, Madonna, way before Nirvana, there was U2 and Blondie, and music still on MTV. Her 2 kids in high school, they tell her that she's uncool because she's still preoccupied with 1985. Story 14. There was this girl, we'll call her Elle, that I went to primary and high school with. She wasn't a typical popular girl, but she was pretty and had a good fashion sense and had pretty well-off parents, so people crowded her. She was almost good at everything she did, piano, singing, sports, her grades, etc. She wasn't a mean girl, but didn't really stop anyone from her group being horrible to other people. She always looked the other way, I guess, but her and I still got along really well, and I thought we were friends. One day, a friend of mine spread really awful rumors about me that I can't repeat because what she said still makes me sick to my stomach, and a lot of people were really horrible to me, throwing condoms at me, asking me for a go, and trying to pull up my shirt to expose me, other horrible things. And while this was all going on, I would ask Elle for help, but she would just look at me sadly and walk away. This went on for a few months before it finally died down and people got over it and left me alone. Elle pulled me aside and asked if we could hang out after school, and I just flat out refused. Didn't tell her why. I didn't speak to her for the rest of our time at school together, and we didn't keep contact after we graduated. At school, she would try, but I just couldn't forgive her. 2 years ago, I ran into her at a grocery store, my daughter behind me talking about her favorite cake. Elle looked worse for wear, pregnant and just really lifeless in her eyes. When she spotted me, she smiled and came up to me. "Hey, Lucky Mittens, I haven't seen you in years." "Yeah, I guess it has been a long time, huh?" She looked at my daughter, who was hiding behind my legs. "And who's this?" I introduced my daughter, and she smiled and greeted my little goblin. We got talking, and I found out that her life was wrecked after high school. She met a guy through their mutual friend, and after a few months, they dated, and then a year after, they moved to a town 3 hours away from our town. Apparently, she became a drug addict, alcohol, and very abused. He would beat her for even talking to other people, or beating her if his coffee wasn't exactly how he liked it. When she got pregnant, she left him and was in a safe house in the process of changing her name out of fear. After hearing her story, I told her what she went through was awful and how sorry I was. I felt bad for her. She had a lot of things going for her. I wrote down my number and gave it to her saying, if you need anything at all, just call. I think she took my number out of politeness, but before I left, she said to me, that time in high school when all those horrible things were happening to you, I'm sorry I didn't help when you needed me to. I'm sorry I wasn't a better person then. I never heard from her again, but a mutual high school friend said she was doing really well in a city across the country with her kid. I really hope she's in a better place in life.
You know, good for you for not holding a grudge. I get it during high school, like she didn't have your back, and so you're just like, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to associate with that. If you're going to leave me out to, hang me out to dry or whatever, then fine. But afterwards, yeah, you seem to just be reasonable and understand, folks. People change after high school. We make mistakes. I did some dumb crap in high school, even after high school, throughout my 20s. I made mistakes, and I'd like to think that I've gotten better and got past them. So hopefully people that I made mistakes with, are happy for me, just like I try and be happy for any people that goofed up with me. I don't know. Just, yeah, good attitude.
Story 15. I can think of two. One male, one female. Both good-looking, smart, nice, and multi-talented. He went off to the Ivy League, became a Rhodes Scholar, and now chairs his department and does cutting-edge biosciences research at a renowned research university. He does have kind of an unflattering haircut and in his faculty photo, though. She went off to the Ivy League, went to medical school, chief resident at a top 10 program, alternates between important research and doing good for people who are poor and sick. Story 16. Went to Harvard, had to take 3 separate semesters off to find myself, did end up graduating about 6 years after starting. Currently working as a credit card salesman, bank teller in our hometown. On the third marriage. Still no kids, was the one who talked about how they wanted to raise their own football team in high school.
Sounds like a person who's struggling to find themselves, struggling to figure out, what works, and hopefully he'll eventually find that groove, As I often say, I didn't find my groove in life until about my mid-30s. Before that, I was drifting aimless all over, so just take some folks some time. Nothing wrong with that.
Story 17. Perfect dude, talking straight A's, funny, athletic, around 6'2", and a good enough tan to name an Islander jealous. So, in front of God and everybody, this girl, about 4'11", glasses, wearing an honest-to-God flower dress, walks up and says, "Can we go out?" His response, "Sure, but I'm paying." Turns out he had a thing for tiny people and refused to date someone who came up to his shoulder. I don't know where they are today, but last I heard they went on vacation last month. Story 18. The perfect girl in my tiny private Christian high school also happened to be my longtime bully. She was a gifted musician, super popular with the Christian and the public school crowd, and drop-dead gorgeous. Her mom was the high school primary teacher and her dad the worship pastor for his church/school. She could do no wrong because she was her parents' perfect little princess. The other girls hung on to her every word, and her every action was deemed worthy by the elders in the church. Everyone around her glorified her, saying she was destined to change the world with her music and her love of God. Queen Bee loved driving down my self-esteem. She called me out for not wearing makeup, F those oils on my acne, for wearing comfier used clothes, for enjoying fantasy and sci-fi and video games, for having male friends, for striving towards a career in art, acted super nice in public but tried to alienate me from potential friendships with other girls by making fun of me in private. We all graduated and finally go our separate ways. I left the Christian lifestyle in the dust, gaining my independence and creating a bright future for myself. Queen Bee? She went to study English. What kind of major is that anyway? Oh. Made it almost 1 full year in college. Stupid, sexy C didn't use condoms. Got pregnant first year, dropped out of school, moved back in with her parents. At 19, they had a shotgun wedding. She never finished school. She's now 25, has 3 kids, and makes a living blogging about God and her children and the wisdom she thinks she possesses. She and her husband and children moved back to Butt-F town in Nowhere County, where her parents are the worship pastor and the high school teacher in the same Christian high school. Don't be peaked at 17. Have fun living your perfect Christian dumpster fire.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.